Again. And we'll look at a statement that the Lord made to Abraham, as he is later called. He's going to tell Abraham to look to the stars. It is in Genesis 15, verses 5 through 6, that we see the Lord say to Abraham, "Look now toward heaven and count the stars, if you are able." Genesis 15 and verse 5. Then he brought him outside and said, "Look now toward heaven and count the stars, if you are able to number them." And he said to him, "So shall your descendants be." And he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness. God has recorded for us this moment with Abraham where he brings him outside, obviously in the nighttime. And he says to him, "Look to the stars, count them if you are able." And then there's a great promise that God gives as he asks him to look at the stars, and that is, "So shall your descendants be." Abraham currently, as this promise is given, is without an heir. He has no child. It is he and Sarah have been married, and he is without child at this point. He's getting older in age, and it's looking less and less likely on the time scale for humanity, and yet God has made this bold and beautiful promise, which we have a far better understanding of today. I want to look at Genesis chapter 20 with you as we consider the promise that God gave and how he gave it to Abraham. In Genesis 20, and this is where we want to start all of this, we're going to see a great man of faith behave just like we do. He is the friend of God, James 2 and verse 23. And yet he is still human. He is Abraham, our father. You think of Abraham that way? Abraham is our father through faith. Galatians 3:29 tells us that if we are Christ, then we're Abraham's seed and we are heirs according to the promise. His tremendous faith is shown to all of us as we read through the Scriptures and see and understand how he responded to the Word of God. His tremendous faith, Abraham, is recorded for us in Genesis 12. Specifically, just really looking at that, Genesis 15, great and awesome faith is demonstrated there by Abraham, our father. All of Galatians 3, the faith of Abraham is highlighted and given to us as an example. All of Romans 4, the faith of Abraham laid out before us. I'll give you some others, specifically in Hebrews 11. What do we call that? The great hall of faith. Abraham is there. He's there for us to see and to consider. Hebrews 11, verses 8 through 10. We see him again in verses 17 through 19. Abraham. He believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Genesis 15 in verse 6. In chapter 20 of Genesis, his humanity is seen. And we're going to look at that this morning and try to encourage one another as we go through this reading and consider what God has preserved for us this morning. Genesis 20 and verse 1 says, "And Abraham journeyed from there to the south and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur and stayed in Gerar. Now Abraham said of Sarah his wife, 'She is my sister.' And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah." Genesis 20. In verse 1, we see that Abraham now is heading south. Well, the Bible says that from there he went south. So where is he? I think that's important for us to think about because I believe it's tied into chapter 20. If you look at Genesis 18 and verse 1, as that begins to be laid out for us, as we see it develop, Abraham has pitched his tent by the terebinth trees in Mamre. This is where he discusses the moral depravity of Sodom and Gomorrah. It is from here, which is referenced as there in 20 and verse 1, it is from here that he will look over the plain and see the smoldering cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. God has judged those cities. Fire and brimstone has rained down upon them, and they're within visual sight of Abraham and where he is. And it says to us now in 20, from there. He's walking away from the judgment of God in which he poured out on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and now he is headed south. We're told he moves south and he settles in Gerar. And what's said here about Abraham? That he's kind of been given this statement that Sarah's my sister. It's kind of his thing. He's already done this before. You may remember, we're having deja vu. He has done this before. He tells the people here in Gerar, Sarah is my sister. And if you'll remember with me, in Genesis 12, he tells Pharaoh the very same thing while he is in Egypt 25 years earlier. Now, that didn't go well for Abraham when he said, oh, she's my sister. No, she's his wife. But he says she's his sister because he's worried that Pharaoh's going to kill him and take his wife. So he tells Sarah, look, for my sake, just tell him you're my sister, and then I won't be in any harm's way. And he is strongly rebuked for that. He should have realized then that it was a mistake. He should not have lied about Sarah and their relationship. We're told here, down in verse 2, that Abimelech now is going to take Sarah, and he's going to take her for himself. He's going to bring her into his harem for a specific purpose. We can't miss something that is important here. Sarah is about 90 years old. How many kings take the 90-year-old women and bring them into their harem? Anybody want to guess? This has plagued scholars for a long time. Why is Sarah so attractive to this man that he would take her and bring her into his harem to be one of the beautiful women who surround him? And most believe that Isaac is coming. It's in chapter 21 that Isaac's going to be born. What did the Lord do for Sarah in order to give her the strength to bear a child? He restored her ability. Now, some take that further than we can to say that he restored her beauty and her youth, that she now looks to be 30 or so. I would not go that far, but there's something here. Because the woman is 90 years old and she has been brought in by this man. He took her for himself, we saw in verse 2. And so Abraham has made the same mistake by saying, she is my sister. Now watch verse 3. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night. Abimelech, just so we know, he is called the king of the Philistines in Genesis 26. He'll be dealing with Isaac and Rebekah there. And guess what Isaac tells Abimelech in Genesis 26? She's my sister. This is a family problem. But I believe that the Abimelech whom Isaac is speaking to is going to be the son of the one who's dealing with Abraham now. I believe that for several reasons. Abimelech is more of a title than it is a name. It means the king, the king is father, or father is the king. So this is Abimelech, king of the Philistines. So, verse 3, God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, indeed, consider this, you are a dead man. That is not good. The Lord has come to this man in a dream and says, Abimelech, you're a dead man. Can God handle that? Sodom and Gomorrah. Indeed, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, will you slay a righteous nation also? Very interesting. That's an interesting question. Did he not say to me, she's my sister? And she, even she herself, said, he's my brother. In the integrity of my heart, in the innocence of my hands, I have done this. And God said to him in a dream, yes, I know that you did this in the integrity of your heart, for I also withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now, therefore, restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet. That's the first time in the Bible we see the word prophet. And yet, Abimelech here is going to understand there's something to that. He himself would have soothsayers, those who predicted the future. God says, this man is a prophet. And he, down in verse 7, will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. Abimelech asked that question to the Lord after he says that he's a dead man. Will you slay the righteous with the wicked? What is God accusing him of, or telling him, why is it that he would strike Abimelech and all of his household dead? What is it that he might do? I want to show you here in Genesis 20 that God cares about marriage. You see that? He's not quoting the law. The law has not been given to Moses yet. Moses is not born. We're way in front of that right here. God says, you have a man's wife. and he holds him accountable for that. God honors always the sanctity of marriage. Genesis 2 and verse 24 is where that began. A man shall leave his father and his mother. He shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. It is the 7th commandment out of the 10 commandments. It is commandment number 7. And it's interesting too because he's talking to the king of the Philistines. You notice the commandment doesn't change for individuals. This commandment of God, the law of God, which is established from the beginning, is both for the prince and the pauper. God's law applies to our lives. He wants us to honor this, and he tells Abimelech, if you don't get this straight, you're a dead man. We can't miss that. Abimelech says, wait, would you slay the righteous with the wicked? I believe he's possibly alluding to Sodom and Gomorrah. He certainly understands this. God judges, right? God can pass judgment on him because now he's saying, well, wait a second. Would you slay the righteous with the wicked? And then he throws out what I believe to be a pretty pathetic excuse, honestly. In the integrity of my heart and in my innocence, I took her by force. Right? Against her will. You think Sarah's like, oh yay, I get to go be in another king's harem when I am Abraham's wife. The New Testament says she honored him as her husband and called him Lord. Now she's been pulled away by a king to be treated as one of his women to do whatever he wants with her. This is not good. He believes it's in the integrity of his heart. He believes that he is innocent. And do you see what God said? Yeah, by the way, I kept you from touching her. And we're going to see how the Lord did that at the end of this chapter. But for now, God says to him, yeah, I know about the integrity of your heart. But I also kept you from touching her. Now, restore her to her husband. That's what we have seen together. Now, Abimelech says, here's his second excuse or second thing that he wants to say to the Lord. Look, he told me that this was his sister, and she even said, he is my brother. And the Lord knows that as well. What do we call that? A half-truth? Abraham's going to explain this. She is his half-sister. What's a half-truth? Is it the truth? We need to know the answer to that. If it was the truth, God wouldn't need to be involved right here, would he? Verse 6, God says, yeah, I know, but I held you back. God has smitten Abimelech and all of his household. God says in verse 7, very important, restore Sarah to Abraham. He is a prophet, and he will pray for you. Look at verse 8. Genesis 20 and verse 8. So Abimelech rose early in the morning, called all of his servants, and told all these things in their hearing, and the men were very much afraid. I bet he did rise early in the morning. When God, the creator of heaven and earth, just destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and says, you're a dead man, guess what? Guess what happens to men when they're told that by their creator? It's kind of hard to go back to sleep. Isn't that right? We've woken up too early sometimes in our own sleep in the middle of the night. We wake up and something's on our mind, something's stirring. How easy is it to lay your head back down and be like, oh well, not easy for me. I stay awake. This man rises early in the morning. He brings his servants in and he lets them know what he's been told, and now they are very afraid. Verse 9, Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, what have you done to us? How have I offended you that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You see that? You have done deeds to me that ought not to be done. Then Abimelech said to Abraham, what did you have in view that you have done these things? What is Abimelech saying to Abraham there when he says, what did you have in view when you lied to me? What's he saying? What did you think would come, right? How did you think this was going to play out? What did you see down the road? And I love this when we say to our children, what did I say? What did I tell you? And when they're younger, it's really cute. You say to a child, what did I say to you? And they go, and you can tell by looking at their face that they really want to give the right answer, but they just don't know what it is. And so again, it's cute when they're young, not when they get older. But we do say to them, what did I say to you? That's exactly what he's saying to Abraham now. Why did you say this? What was your plan? Why did you think this would work? You've sinned against me. Now down in verse 11, after he asked him, why have you done this thing? Abraham said, listen to this, this is not good. Well, because I thought, surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. He's saying to Abimelech, I'm afraid. I thought that when you saw my wife, you would take me out, and then she would be yours. And that's a legitimate and genuine concern. He's afraid. But indeed, now he's going to justify himself. That's what we always do. But indeed, she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And I don't know how. That's not how that ends. He says, look, we have a different mother, a different father. I've got the same father, a different mother. And then she just became my wife. You think Sarah's standing there going, thanks, honey? She just became my wife. She was my sister, but now she's my wife. I didn't lie. You see that? It's not working. She's your half-sister, so is she your half-wife? No, no one's going to accept that. And yet here he is. I want us to see this because it's important. He's scared. He's afraid he's going to lose his life. And he's moving now from that fear. We talk about Sarah and Abraham hearing the promise of God, and then they try to help God, right? How do they do that? Well, they bring in Hagar. That's typically where we turn. But here we are again. Abraham has the promise, and now he's going to help God get it done. I'm going to lie so that I can live and do what God said I'll eventually do. Does the Lord need us to work out another plan so that His plan can be fulfilled when our plan involves sin? Can that ever be right? Will that ever be true? Certainly not. Why have you done this? Well, it's kind of a long-time family rule, right? He's going to tell him that. Now, watch verse 13. It came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, this is your kindness that you should do for me in every place. Wherever we go, say of me, he is my brother. Abraham knew that she was beautiful, especially in her youth. And this is a long-time family tradition. And that's what Abraham's telling Abimelech now. Look, this is a long-time family rule. It's always been that way. Everywhere we go, and I'm afraid we lie about our relationship. Everywhere we go, and I'm afraid we lie. That was the plan. So that's what we did. Watch verse 14. Then Abimelech took sheep, oxen, male and female servants, gave them to Abraham, and he restored Sarah, his wife, to him. Abimelech has done what God asked him to do. God said, commanded him in chapter 7, restore her to her husband. Abimelech's angry with Abraham, but he's going to do what the Lord said because the Lord can smite him. So she is restored. Verse 15, Abimelech said, see, my land is before you, dwell where it pleases you, from the king. Then to Sarah, now watch Abimelech rub it in here a little bit. Then to Sarah he said, behold, I have given your brother. I love that. I've given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Indeed, this vindicates you before all who are with you and before everybody. Thus she was rebuked. The proper word there is she's justified. She's done nothing wrong. She followed the order of her husband. She was taken by the king. She was never touched. She did not commit adultery or sexual fornication. She is justified. That's important. Verse 17, so Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female servants. Then they bore children. So that tells us that a period of time has gone by now where he had Sarah, and God had stricken Abimelech with something where either it did not cross his mind or he was too sick to think about those kinds of things. He did not touch Sarah. God's involved. So when you go back to God saying, yeah, I know the integrity of your heart, but I also helped you not touch her. That God's moving now to preserve the promise that He gave to Abraham with or without him. That's important for us. Then they bore children, verse 18, for the Lord had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So God most certainly is involved. Remember where we started. Look now toward heaven and count the stars. If you are able, so shall your descendants be. Brothers and sisters in Christ, we stand in a place and in a position where we can look at the promise in Genesis 12, Genesis 15, and see that God absolutely fulfilled that promise through Abraham, through his only son, Isaac, whom God gave to him when he was 100 years old and when Sarah was 90 years old. This son will be born to them. God will do it. He will do it his way. He upheld his promise. He tells him that his descendants will be like the stars of heaven. All of the families of the earth shall be blessed in Abraham. God's going to preserve him and give him and Sarah both the strength to conceive and to bear a son. Remember what I said, Isaac is coming in chapter 21. A man of great faith who was afraid, who told a lie. He was worried about the way his day would turn out, his life would turn out. He was separated from his wife for a period of time because of this problem and because of his fear. And we look to him and we say, don't do that, man. You're Abraham. Don't do that. Be strong, follow the Lord, tell the truth. God has preserved this chapter for us so that we would turn it back to ourselves and say, God has made me a promise. He will keep His word. His promise is not a safe trip or safe travel through this life. Please understand that. Some people misunderstand who God is and what He does. His role as your King, your God, and your Creator is not to keep you comfortable, not to keep you fat and happy. His role is to bring you home for eternity. This place where we dwell is a testing ground, and we are tested. We're to look at Abraham and say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to mess up like that. I don't want to start lying and fibbing because I want to do what's right eventually. Or I want God's promise to be fulfilled. We want to learn from these examples and say, no, I'll hold fast to the truth of God and I'll live and abide in a way that reflects that. Let's look at a New Testament passage that's written for all of us, and we'll use that to show that we have a promise. And it'll also show us who we should be, how we should behave, and that we should fear no man. The fear of men is a snare, the Proverbs tells us. Please know that that will always be true. The fear of men and what men might do to you is a snare. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. It will always be true. Galatians chapter 3 and verse 26, please read it with me. Galatians 3:26, for you are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ, you have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Abraham is set before us as a great man of faith, and yet the Lord is not worried about showing us that he is a human. He has the issues that we face as well in our lives, on different levels and in different ways. But we are of His seed. We are children of God. We are in and of the body of Jesus Christ. God told Abraham, look to the stars. Could Abraham ever have known what that really meant? Look to the stars and see if you can count them, because this is how many descendants you're going to have. Well, if we're Abraham's seed, Christians, members of the Lord's church, then we are heirs of Abraham. God speaking to him, we watch Abraham go, but I don't have a son, I don't have a son, I don't have a son. God's like, calm down. There will be more heirs of yours than there are stars of heaven. And here we are, in this room, a part of that picture, a part of that family, a part of that promise. We are part of what God told Abraham in Genesis 12 and Genesis 15. Now, we'll make the changes we need to, so we won't be exactly like our father Abraham, and we will have the faith and the courage to say, I believe in God, He will see me through. Let's stand up for what's right. Let's do what's right. Let's speak words of encouragement and wisdom to one another and walk in the light. God's blessing and all of His promise is tied to that light. We would be fools to walk away from it. You may have read with me, if you're thinking about obeying the gospel, that those who are baptized into Christ have put on Christ. This is absolutely necessary for someone who's coming to the knowledge of the gospel. They're thinking about the Lord. Am I saved? Am I not saved? You need to put on Christ. Those who are baptized into Christ have put on Christ, and you are heirs of Abraham. You are heirs of the promise of God. Come forward now. There's an opportunity for you to do that, to confess the name of Jesus, to put on Christ in baptism, to know that now you are one of those stars in heaven that is now present and accounted for all of eternity. You can do that great thing for yourself today by coming forward. We want you to do it now while we stand and sing to encourage you.